Welcome to Quiet Historian, where we close our eyes, listen, and fall asleep to quiet history. I'm your narrator for the night, equal parts history nerd and pillow enthusiast. Tonight, we descend into the final days of the Reich, where silence hums beneath the ruins of Berlin, and a man once worshipped as invincible finally faces the truth he built his empire to deny. It is April 1945. Hitler's armies are shattered, his capital surrounded, his generals long since broken or gone. In the bunker below the city, he learns that the last hope, the Steiner counterattack, never came. He slams the table, trembles, and whispers the words that end an age. The war is lost. But this unraveling began months earlier when his own officers tried to kill him. An explosion meant to end the madness and save what was left of Germany. They almost succeeded. This is the story of two collapses, the day Hitler finally knew it was over, and the day his generals nearly made it so. It is April 1945, and Berlin is a dying city. The air hangs thick with smoke, dust, and the faint scent of wet earth. Each explosion shakes loose another decade of stone, another illusion of permanence. Above the city, the Red Army presses closer. Below it, in a damp maze of concrete, Adolf Hitler refuses to accept the truth. The war that was meant to last 1,000 years has barely survived 12. The Führerbunker is smaller than legend makes it. Its ceilings are low, its air stale. Fluorescent lights hum over maps that no longer matter. Cables snake across the floor beside cold coffee cups and trembling secretaries. Each corridor smells of sweat, paper, and fear. Outside, artillery rolls through the distance like an angry tide. Inside, the only sound is the scratch of pencils marking positions that no longer exist. For years, Hitler had lived on a diet of prophecy. Every defeat, every setback, he declared temporary. Fate, he believed, was his ally. But fate had long since turned against him. Now even his most loyal aides can see it in his posture. The stooped shoulders, the shaking hand that once saluted like a blade. He is still called Mein Führer, but the word has lost its magic. His generals beg him to flee south to the Alps, to form a redoubt, to fight another day. He mocks them for their weakness. Surrender, he spits, is humiliation. Retreat, he says, is betrayal. Death will come, and he will meet it on his own terms. But when the doors close and the footsteps fade, something inside him falters. The illusion of control begins to splinter when Hermann Göring, once heir to the Reich, sends a message suggesting he take command if Hitler is cut off. To anyone else it would seem practical. To Hitler, it is treachery. He orders Göring's arrest, pacing the narrow room in fury. Yet the meaning is clear even to him. His empire is no longer obeying. The machinery of loyalty has rusted. Then comes the Steiner order, the phantom hope. General Felix Steiner is to lead a counterattack that will save Berlin. Hitler dictates the plan with the precision of a man rearranging ghosts. But Steiner never receives the troops. He never moves an inch. The order is fantasy, the gesture of a drowning man reaching for smoke. It is April 22nd, 1945. In the Führerbunker, deep beneath the ruins of Berlin, the last illusion dies. When the truth reaches him that there will be no counterattack, Hitler's face collapses in on itself. He trembles, strikes the table, and screams that the war is lost, that all have betrayed him. The walls shake with his voice. Then suddenly, silence. He sinks into his chair, the fury drained away, whispering words his staff will never forget. The war is lost. That was the moment, precise and undeniable, when he knew it was over. The myth that had carried him for a decade shattered in a single breath. Afterward, he dismisses the staff. When they return, the voice that once shook nations is barely a whisper. He speaks not of destiny or victory, but of death. He tells them he will stay in Berlin until the end. No one argues. No one dares. Above their heads, the city burns. The streets are rivers of glass and cinders. Children carry rifles that are taller than they are. Women search for water among the rubble. Fires bloom across the skyline like brief red suns. Every blast sends dust trickling from the bunker ceiling, as if the earth itself is counting down. In the dimness of his office, Hitler studies a portrait of Frederick the Great, the Prussian king who once turned disaster into victory. He stares at it for hours, as though willing the canvas to come alive. But the painted eyes offer no rescue. The silence gives him nothing back. The man who once commanded millions now rules over a handful of secretaries, a few guards, and his own fear. By mid-April, betrayal has become routine. Himmler seeks peace behind his back. Goebbels weeps in corridors. Generals vanish from maps as fast as divisions. The Reich that once stretched across a continent now fits inside a basement. And even there, the walls are closing in. At night, he hears the Soviets drawing nearer, the grind of treads, the thunder of artillery, the low metallic chorus of an army unstoppable. Each explosion is a heartbeat, each tremor a countdown. He knows they are coming not just for his city, but for his idea of himself. He walks to the mirror, one hand shaking, and sees what remains. Not a god, not a conqueror, but a pale, exhausted old man waiting for history to erase him. That was when the 1,000-year Reich ended, not with the gunshot that would follow, but with the look in his own reflection. The myth had died before the man did. The collapse above becomes the quiet below. What was once a war now shrinks to a whisper of routines, footsteps, orders, and fear. Morning and night have lost their meaning. The bunker does not know the sun. No windows mark the hours. No birds announce the dawn. Time here moves by the rhythm of footsteps and the distant thunder of war above. The air is stale, heavy with damp plaster and cigarette smoke that never clears. Each breath tastes faintly of rust. In one room, a clock still ticks, though no one trusts it anymore. Secretaries whisper about it, how the ticking seems slower each day. They work under pale lights that buzz overhead, typing reports no one will read, taking dictation for speeches that will never be heard. The bunker is an island beneath a dying empire, a machine running on habit after purpose has gone. Food is rationed to the crumb. Bread is dry, coffee thin, vegetables almost gone. Some joke that they will soon be eating the wallpaper. At night, the cooks serve watery soup while explosions shake dust from the ceiling. The staff eats in silence, pretending not to notice. Even laughter feels dangerous here, like it might draw the end closer. Hitler remains mostly in his private quarters now, pacing between desk and map. His body betrays him. His left hand trembles. His walk is stiff. His complexion grey. The man who once spoke for hours to roaring crowds now mumbles to himself. He still dictates military orders that no one will carry out. Lines on the map move only because his pencil moves them. Outside those walls, the war ignores him. Eva Braun stays near him, a ghost of normalcy in a collapsing world. She writes in her diary, dresses each day as though for a party that will never begin, and smiles too brightly for the room around her. She refuses to leave his side, saying she belongs wherever he is, even in death. Her perfume lingers in the hallways longer than conversation does. She still laughs sometimes, and for a moment, the bunker almost feels human. Around them, loyalty dissolves quietly. Officers exchange long glances when they pass in corridors. No one trusts anyone else. Every rumor becomes a threat. Every silence a secret. Even the sound of a typewriter can make hearts skip. A message, a betrayal, a signal of the end. History itself feels suspended here, waiting for permission to continue. The conversations grow stranger as the days shorten. One moment, Hitler is planning phantom counterattacks. The next, he speaks of Wagner, of German destiny, of betrayal and purity, of a world that no longer exists. His words echo against the concrete like a sermon delivered to the dead. The generals nod politely, their faces carved from stone. They know the truth, but they no longer dare to say it aloud. The walls themselves seem to listen. Every footstep returns as an echo. Every sigh feels amplified. Cigarette smoke clings to uniforms and hair. People move more slowly, as though sound might break something sacred. It is not courage that keeps them here, but momentum. Sometimes, a courier arrives from the surface, covered in dust and disbelief. He brings fragments of the outside world, rumors, maps, a handful of radio messages. He always looks older than when he left. He speaks of streets reduced to craters, of civilians scavenging for water, of Soviet banners seen fluttering not far from the Brandenburg Gate. Each time he returns, the silence afterward grows longer. Goebbels clings to Hitler like a shadow, whispering assurances that sound like prayers. He promises the people still believe that destiny is merely delayed. But his voice shakes when he speaks. At night, his wife writes letters to their children, as if preparing them for something neither parent can name. No one dares to speak of hope anymore. On April 25th, the sound above changes. The Soviets are now in the city proper, their artillery deafening, their tanks grinding over the ruins of streets that once hosted parades. Each blast makes the light fixtures sway, dust falling like grey snow. The bunker feels less like a shelter and more like a tomb. No one sleeps, no one dreams. In the radio room, a final announcement plays. The Führer remains in Berlin, leading his troops in defense of the capital. Even the operators know it's a lie, but they broadcast it anyway. Truth has long been a casualty of this war. They repeat the words until the static becomes unbearable. Afterward, the room stays quiet, the radio humming like a low heartbeat. Every hour feels like the last. Conversations fade mid-sentence. Secretaries write their wills. Some hide cyanide capsules in their pockets. Others pray to gods they once mocked. The smell of sweat and candle wax fills every corridor. And somewhere in the distance, above the weight of all that earth, Berlin continues to burn. That night, as the artillery grows closer, Hitler sits perfectly still for the first time in days. He listens. He closes his eyes. And though no one will ever truly know what he thought, witnesses say something changed. The defiance drained from his face, replaced by a dull calm. He had finally accepted what the world already knew. The end was not coming. It had arrived. Above ground, the empire burns itself out. Below, a final act waits in the dark. By the last days of April 1945, Berlin has become a graveyard made of light and smoke. Every hour bleeds into the next. Every building is a wound. The sky glows orange at night, the horizon flickering like a dying furnace. In the bunker below, time no longer matters. There are no days left to count. The walls shake constantly now. Concrete dust falls from the ceiling into coffee cups. Cables sway, and typewriters jump with each blast. Conversations turn into whispers, then into silence. Even breathing seems too loud. It is as if the entire bunker is holding its breath. Outside, Soviet troops fight their way, street by street toward the Reich chancellery. The map of Berlin is reduced to a handful of intersections still in German hands. Whole neighborhoods lie in ruins, bridges gone, trams twisted along the river. The once mighty capital of Europe is reduced to whispers and ash. Hitler now sleeps little and speaks less. When he does, his voice is strangely calm, as if the noise of the world has finally worn him down. he still tries to command armies that no longer exist, issuing orders to divisions that have ceased to move. The war maps on his wall have turned into memorials of imagination. Reality has already left the room. On April 29th, news arrives from Italy. Mussolini is dead, captured by his own people, shot, and hung upside down for the world to see. The words sink into the bunker like a stone dropped into still water. Hitler reads the report in silence. Then he said, barely above a whisper, "I will not suffer Mussolini's fate." Those are not words of courage, but of control. That night, he calls for Eva Braun. They are married in a small room, lit by candles and the dull glow of an oil lamp. The champagne is cheap. The witnesses, pale with exhaustion, sign the papers with shaking hands. Outside, artillery thunders, shaking dust from the ceiling onto the wedding table. They toast anyway, pretending for a few minutes that the world still exists. After the ceremony, he thanks his staff. Some weep openly, others simply stand, too tired for emotion. He gives final instructions, what to destroy, what to keep, what to do with his body. Even in defeat, he choreographs every detail. It is the last illusion of power left to him. The next afternoon, he eats a simple meal and withdraws to his quarters with Eva. Witnesses recall a long, heavy silence, a door closing softly, then a single shot. Just one. The sound echoes through the bunker, short and absolute, the punctuation of an era. The guards hesitate before entering. When they do, the scene is already still. The pistol lies on the floor beside the couch. Eva has taken cyanide. A faint smell of almonds hangs in the air. Hitler's body is limp, his face slack, almost peaceful. For a moment, even the war above seems to pause. His aides follow his final orders. They carry the bodies up the narrow stairs to the garden. Outside, shells still scream through the grey Berlin sky. They lay him in a shallow crater, pour gasoline, and set it alight. Flames rise weakly in the wind, flickering, sputtering, then climbing higher as another volley hits nearby. The empire that once reached from the Atlantic to the Volga ends in a few feet of burning earth. Inside the bunker, those who remain destroy documents, burn photographs, tear insignia from uniforms. Some wait in silence for the Soviets to arrive. Others take their own lives. The corridors fill with smoke and the bitter smell of cyanide. Even history seems reluctant to enter that place. Above ground, Soviet soldiers advance through the wreckage. They find the Reich chancellery reduced to rubble, the gardens charred and cratered. When they discover the bunker days later, it is a tomb, maps scattered, typewriters still, dishes half-eaten, the air thick with decay. The end of a world has left its fingerprints on every surface. Nothing in those rooms speaks anymore, but everything remembers. Berlin surrenders on May 2nd. Within a week, Nazi Germany is gone. The 1,000-year Reich has lasted just 12. Its monuments are broken, its flags trampled, its promises silent. Across Europe, families emerge from basements and ruins, blinking into the light, trying to understand what remains. The nightmare has finally exhaled, but the real end is quieter still. It lives in the silence that follows, the silence of a city without music, the silence of a people waking from delusion. In that quiet, the myth of destiny dissolves completely. History has closed the door, leaving only echoes behind. The war is over, and the silence, at last, belongs to the living. When Hitler's own generals tried to kill him and almost pulled it off. It is July 1944, and Germany stands on a knife's edge. The Reich that once swallowed a continent is now bleeding from 1,000 cuts. To the west, Allied armies push inland from Normandy. To the east, the Red Army rolls across ruined villages and burned forests. Above, bombers hum like iron bees, turning cities to ash. The war that was promised to last 1,000 years is clearly dying, yet its architect refuses to see it. Inside army headquarters, in officers' mess halls and quiet apartments, a thought begins to take root. If Germany is to survive at all, someone must remove Hitler from power. It is a thought both treasonous and patriotic. Many who share it wear the same uniforms they swore to him. What began as whispers among the disillusioned has grown into a conspiracy. The men involved are not saboteurs or foreign agents. They are generals, colonels, clerks, and diplomats. Most come from families steeped in Prussian tradition, discipline, order, and loyalty to the state, rather than to any one man. They have watched their country twist into something monstrous. Among them are Field Marshal Erwin von Witzleben, General Ludwig Beck, General Friedrich Olbricht, and others of the military elite. But history will remember one name above the rest: Claus von Stauffenberg. Born into southern German aristocracy, he was intelligent, devout, and loyal. He had believed in Hitler's early promises of national renewal. He had fought bravely in North Africa and paid for it with blood. An airstrike in 1943 took his right hand, 2 fingers from his left, and the sight in one eye. Where pain took root, conviction grew. By 1944, Stauffenberg saw the truth that others tried to ignore. Hitler's rule was destroying Germany's body and soul. He returned to duty as Chief of Staff to the Reserve Army, a position that offered both authority and access. His new office placed him near the heart of the machine he now planned to stop. For him, killing Hitler had become not only a military necessity, but a moral obligation. The plan took shape around an existing emergency directive known as Operation Valkyrie. Originally written to protect the state in case of civil unrest or an SS uprising, Valkyrie allowed the Reserve Army to seize control of the government in crisis. General Olbricht, who helped write the original document, quietly revised it. Now the plan would serve another purpose: to overthrow the regime once Hitler was dead. Valkyrie would turn the Führer's own system against him. To succeed, the coup would require perfect timing. The bomb must kill Hitler. Orders must follow instantly. Troops across Germany and occupied Europe must believe they were acting under lawful command. Communication lines had to be seized before the regime realized what had happened. The conspirators rehearsed everything except the one event they could only attempt once. Stauffenberg carried the weight of both roles, assassin and patriot. He was granted permission to attend Hitler's briefings at the Wolf's Lair, the high command complex in East Prussia. Twice in early July, he had tried to bring his briefcase close enough to kill. Both times, circumstances shifted. The first meeting lacked key Nazi leaders. The second was cancelled without warning. Each failure increased the danger of discovery. The Gestapo was already watching. By mid-July, there was no more time. Germany was collapsing. The world was closing in. And Stauffenberg decided that if he could not end the war with two hands, he would do it with one. Morning, July 20th. A grey military aircraft slices through low clouds toward East Prussia. Inside, Stauffenberg sits beside his aide, Werner von Haften, the briefcase resting at his feet. Inside the case lie two small packages of British plastic explosive and a single pair of chemical fuses, silent, precise, and deadly. They land at Rastenburg around 10 in the morning and drive through the guarded forest toward the Wolf's Lair. The compound is vast, a maze of fences, minefields, and camouflaged bunkers hidden beneath pine canopies. Every few hundred meters, guards halt the car, check documents, salute, and wave them through. To reach Hitler's quarters is to pass through 3 circles of steel and suspicion. Stauffenberg's credentials are flawless. He has a legitimate appointment to brief Hitler on reserve army formations. Once inside, he asks for a room to change his sweat-soaked uniform. The request seems harmless. It buys him a few minutes alone. In that narrow room, with his aide's help, he begins to arm the bombs. Working with one hand, he grips the fuse with pliers, crushes the thin glass vial that starts the chemical timer, and feels it crack. 10 minutes until detonation. But a knock comes at the door, an officer reminding him that the meeting has been moved up by half an hour. There is no time to arm the second charge. He has to choose, abort or proceed with one. He chooses to continue. At 12:37 p.m., the conference begins. The usual underground bunker is too hot, so Hitler has ordered the meeting held in a wooden guest house above ground. Large windows stand open for air. Maps sprawl across the oak table. 24 officers crowd close as reports pour in from collapsing fronts. Stauffenberg enters, sets down his briefcase, and slides it quietly beneath the table near Hitler's legs. Protocol demands that he remain. Instead, he murmurs to another officer that he must take an urgent phone call to Berlin. Permission granted, He steps out into the sunlight, heart hammering. 10 minutes. Inside the room, Colonel Heinz Brandt moves the briefcase aside to see the maps more clearly, placing it beyond the solid table support. No one notices. At 12:42 p.m., the air ignites. The explosion shreds the hut, hurls men to the floor, and sends a column of smoke rising above the forest canopy. Guards run, guns drawn, shouts breaking into chaos. From a distance, Stauffenberg watches flames and debris spill into the air. He can hardly breathe. Surely no one could have survived. He walks briskly toward his car, waving to startled sentries. At the first checkpoint, he bluffs his way through, citing urgent orders. At the second, the same. At the third, the alarm begins to spread. The guards hesitate, then let him pass. Minutes later, the order arrives to detain him. He is already gone. As his car speeds away from the wolf's lair, a second reality takes shape behind him. The oak table leg has shielded Hitler. The open windows have vented the blast. 4 men are dead. 7 more are wounded. Hitler's trousers are shredded, his eardrums ruptured, his arm bruised. But he stands, dusted with soot, alive, furious, and certain that Providence has spared him. Within minutes, he dictates orders and summons Goebbels to prepare an announcement. Meanwhile, Stauffenberg's plane lifts off for Berlin. He and Haeften believe they have succeeded. When he lands around 4 in the afternoon, he races to the Bendler Block, headquarters of the Reserve Army. General Olbricht begins issuing Valkyrie orders, even without confirmation. Across Germany, teletype machines chatter. Units in Paris, Vienna, and Prague receive commands to secure key sites and arrest SS leaders. For a few hours, confusion favors the rebels. But the momentum depends on proof. At 6 o'clock, a radio broadcast announces that Hitler has survived. Soon, his gravel-edged voice reaches the airwaves, promising vengeance against traitors. Every syllable collapses the conspiracy's fragile authority. Officers who had hesitated now turn away. Troops loyal to the regime reclaim control of buildings seized only hours earlier. Inside the Bendler Block, the walls seem to tilt. Phones ring, unanswered. Some men slip away into the dark. Others remain, grimly loyal to failure. Near midnight, loyalist forces storm the courtyard. A brief firefight ends the last illusion of success. Stauffenberg is wounded and arrested. His commanding officer, General Friedrich Fromm, desperate to save himself, convenes a summary court-martial on the spot. Just after midnight, July the 21st, a truck's headlights cast 2 long cones of light across the cobblestones. A firing squad assembles. Stauffenberg stands straight, his uniform blood-stained, his voice steady. "Long live sacred Germany," he said. Rifles crack and silence falls. His aide Haeften and fellow conspirators Olbricht and Merz von Quernheim follow within minutes. The night exhales and the rebellion ends. The next day, Berlin wakes to posters calling the conspirators cowards and traitors. The Nazi propaganda machine moves faster than grief. Hitler appears before cameras, his arm in a sling, his voice proclaiming divine protection. The attempt, he says, proves providence itself, guards the Führer. Vengeance becomes policy. Within days, hundreds are arrested. The People's Court, presided over by Roland Freisler, turns justice into theater. Defendants are stripped of belts and medals, shouted down, mocked, denied counsel. Sentences are foregone conclusions. Many executions are filmed for Hitler's private viewing. Piano wire replaces rope. Men die slowly, hung from meat hooks. Among the condemned are Field Marshal Witzleben, Admiral Canaris, General Beck, and the theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The purge reaches families through Sippenhaft, kin liability. Wives and children are imprisoned, property is seized, names erased from records. In total, around 7,000 people are arrested. 200 are executed outright. Thousands more vanish into camps until the war's end. Hitler's paranoia deepens. He trusts only the SS and his own shrinking circle. The military oath is rewritten, no longer to Germany, but to Hitler personally. Officers must swear absolute obedience to the man, not the nation. By turning faith inward, he isolates himself completely. The war grinds on for 10 more months. During that time, the Ardennes offensive fails, Dresden burns, and the Red Army crosses the Oder. Millions more die. Every hour of combat beyond that July afternoon is time borrowed from reason. When the Reich finally collapses in May 1945, Stauffenberg's prophecy is fulfilled. Germany lies in ruin. For decades after the war, memory argues with itself. Some Germans call the conspirators traitors who betrayed their oaths. Others see them as patriots who tried to rescue their country from moral abyss. Motives were tangled. Faith, guilt, pride, despair, but courage ran through all of them like a shared pulse. History learns to whisper their names instead of shouting them down. Today, the Bendler Block courtyard is quiet. The walls still bear the marks of bullets from that night. A bronze figure of a man with bound hands stands where Stauffenberg fell. Visitors leave flowers beneath the inscription, "You did not bear the shame. You resisted." Each July 20th, Germany remembers not success, but the attempt. What happened at the Wolf's Lair endures because it nearly changed everything. If the meeting had remained in the bunker, if the briefcase had not been moved, if 2 charges had been armed instead of 1, Hitler would have died, and perhaps the war would have ended months sooner. History hinges on such small distances. A table leg, a gust of air, a single step to the left. As night falls, again in East Prussia, the Wolf's Lair returns to silence. Pine needles carpet the ruins. Moss creeps over broken concrete. The voices that once echoed there have vanished into wind. And in that stillness, the memory of the men who tried, knowing they would likely fail, rests like a heartbeat in the earth. Close your eyes. The forest breathes. Somewhere, far away, the clock strikes midnight again, and in the quiet between seconds, you can almost hear a whisper of paper, a spark of courage, and the echo of a single thought that refused to die. Germany must live, even if we do not.